Deleted Peppa Pig episode, The One Who Always Watches, which was never showed on TV. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos. One evening, Peppa was brushing her teeth before bed, just like always. Everything felt normal. She went to her room getting ready to sleep when she suddenly felt someone watching her. She looked out the window and saw a figure standing not far from the house. The shadow looked like her best friend Pedro, but his eyes were pitch black, like holes ready to pull you in. Peppa didn't think much of it and calmly went to sleep. The next morning, as usual, Peppa looked out the window to check the weather. But suddenly, there, in the exact same spot, stood that same figure, unmoving, with those terrifying black eyes. Peppa ran to the kitchen to tell her parents. Mummy Pig was there making breakfast. "Mummy, there's a creepy figure outside. He's been standing in the same place since yesterday." Mummy Pig looked out the window but saw nothing. "There's no one there, Peppa." "But I saw him," Peppa shouted. "Calm down and go to your room." From that moment on, Peppa kept seeing the same figure. She thought she was going mad. Later, she went up to the attic to play with some old toys, only to find Pedro standing there, holding a knife, smiling menacingly. After that day, Peppa disappeared. Deleted Peppa Pig episode, Evie and Her Terrifying Hunger, which was never showed on TV. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos. At first, everything was normal. Little Evie was sweet, oinking, playing with George and eating puree. But after just a few weeks, Mummy Pig noticed something strange. Evie was never full. She could eat 3 jars of puree, a mountain of cookies, and half of Daddy Pig's dinner. But she would still reach for more food and whisper, "More, more." With each day, Evie grew bigger. She no longer chewed, she just swallowed food whole. And at night, Peppa would hear her whispering in her sleep, "I want you." One morning, Peppa woke up, and Mummy and Daddy were gone. She walked into the kitchen. There at the table sat Evie, but now she was much larger than usual. Her belly bulged like a giant balloon. "Where's Mummy?" Peppa whispered. "Inside," Evie replied. Peppa screamed. Evie licked her lips. "Now you are dessert." After that, no one ever saw Peppa again. Deleted Peppa Pig episode, Peppa Pig and the Slender Forest, which was never showed on TV. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos. One day, Peppa Pig's family decided to go on a picnic. Daddy Pig found an old map in the attic and exclaimed, "Here it is, the forgotten forest. No one around, silence, fresh air. Perfect." They drove out, but as soon as they entered the forest, everything changed. The silence was too silent. No birdsong, no rustling leaves, only black rotting trees and fog creeping along the ground. "Mummy, I don't like it here," George whispered, clutching his toy dinosaur. "Don't be afraid, darling. It's just a forest," replied Mummy Pig. They spread out a blanket and unpacked the basket. Peppa noticed a piece of paper pinned to a tree. She walked up and read aloud, "Do not look at him." "Look at who?" Peppa asked curiously. And then something moved behind the trees, very slowly, very tall, faceless, because there was no face. Slender Man. Daddy Pig thought it was just someone in a costume, but the closer he came, the more everything around began to distort. "To the car, quick!" Mummy Pig shouted. But the way back was gone. Everything was covered in fog. The trees were covered with papers, drawings, Peppa's house on fire, George alone in the forest, and everywhere, him. Slender Man appeared right in front of them, not walking, not running. He just was. Peppa and George held hands. Slender Man came closer, and then Peppa remembered. He feeds on fear. Don't be afraid, and he'll vanish. She closed her eyes, hugged George tightly, and shouted, "You're not scary to us." The fog cleared. Slender Man vanished. The forest returned to normal. The pig family quickly got into the car and drove away. But when they arrived home, they noticed a note lying in the trunk. It said, "You escaped. This time, to be continued." Deleted Peppa Pig episode, Family Dinner on Halloween, which was never showed on TV. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos. Halloween was approaching. The pig family's house was perfectly decorated. Carved pumpkins with smiling faces, garlands made of bones. Daddy Pig was hanging lanterns, Mummy Pig was setting the table, and George was drawing spooky faces on a sheet of paper. Everyone was busy. Everyone, except Peppa. Peppa stood in the corner of the kitchen. "What will I be for Halloween?" she asked. Mummy Pig turned to her and smiled far too widely. "You'll be the main course, darling." Peppa laughed. She thought it was a joke. But then Daddy Pig picked up a huge cooking pot. George opened the oven, and Mummy began chopping garlic. When the guests arrived for dinner, the table was already set. The pumpkins were glowing. Ghosts were hanging from the ceiling. And in the center was a massive dish. On the platter lay a pink piglet. "Where's Peppa?" asked Susie Sheep. "She's right here," Daddy Pig replied. Deleted Peppa Pig episode, They Arrived at Night, which was never showed on TV. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos. One night, Peppa woke up to a strange sound, as if someone was scratching the roof of the house. She looked out the window and saw a light, bright, green, blinding. A huge flying object hovered right above their house, silent, unmoving, as if it were watching. The next morning, no one remembered what had happened during the night, except Peppa. George had a strange mark under his eye, tiny circles that glowed in the dark. Mummy Pig kept quietly repeating the same phrase while staring into nothing. "They'll be back soon." Daddy Pig just sat and stared at the sky. He didn't eat. He didn't speak. At school, no one talked to Peppa. Madame Gazelle only gave her a strange look and whispered, "You saw them, didn't you? Then you don't have much time left." That night, Peppa woke up again. 3 figures stood in her room, thin, gray, with huge black eyes. They didn't move, didn't blink. They just stared. And then Peppa heard a voice in her head. "We chose you. You remember more than you should." Her body went numb. She couldn't scream. She just lay there as one of them reached for her nose and touched it. The next morning, Peppa woke up in her bed, but everything was wrong. George called her not the real Peppa. Mummy was afraid to enter her room. In the mirror, a different piglet stared back, with empty eyes and a faintly glowing mark on her nose. Deleted Peppa Pig episode, Creu 13 Virus, which was never showed on TV. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos. It started with a simple sneeze. Daddy Pig caught a cold after working in the garden and spent 2 days in bed with a fever. "It's just a runny nose," said Mummy Pig. "It will pass." But on the third day, he stopped responding. He just sat at the table, chewing slowly. His eyes turned cloudy, and his skin took on a grayish tint. Then he lunged at the fridge, tearing into bags and food, grunting louder and louder. Mummy Pig locked the door. Panic swept through the town. The news reported on the HRYU13 virus, which was turning pigs into hungry, mindless creatures with only one desire: raw meat. The school was closed. The teacher was seen outside, dragging a bag and mumbling, "Homework, homework." Peppa and George climbed into the attic, shut the hatch, and turned on their walkie-talkies. "George, don't fall asleep," said Peppa. "If I start grunting, don't come near me." That night, they heard a knock. "Pee-pa, open up." She looked out the window and saw the street was full of zombie pigs. Among them, Miss Rabbit, Danny, even Susie. They were all grunting and repeating, "Pee-pa, come out and play." Deleted Peppa Pig episode, The Little One Who Came at Night, which was never showed on TV. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos. It started on a completely ordinary night. Daddy Pig was dozing off in front of the TV, George was cuddling his dinosaur, and Peppa was drawing in her room. Mummy Pig was holding her belly. The due date was close, and everyone was waiting for the new baby. But the labor began suddenly, at 3 in the morning. The lights in the house flickered, the clocks stopped, and outside the window came a strange scraping sound, as if someone were dragging a hoof across the glass. Daddy took Mummy to the hospital but returned alone, holding a small bundle. "It's a girl," he whispered. "She is special." From that day on, the house no longer felt cozy. The baby never cried. She simply stared at everyone without blinking, her eyes far too dark for a newborn. She was never heard during the day. But at night, one morning, George was found unconscious. On his neck were 2 thin puncture marks, like from sharp needles. Daddy said it was probably a mosquito. Peppa decided to find out. She stayed awake, hiding under the bed, and she saw the baby rise from her crib. She didn't crawl, she walked like a grown-up. She went over to George, leaned in, and the next morning Peppa told Mummy everything. But Mummy only said, "She's our child, and now she must feed." Every night, Peppa never slept again, because at night the baby whispers to her, "You're sweet. Your turn is soon." Deleted Peppa Pig episode, Now There Are 3 of Us, which was never showed on TV. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more interesting videos. Mummy Pig had been acting strange since early morning. She was silent, gently rubbing her belly, and not answering any questions. "Mummy, are you okay?" Peppa asked. "Yes, it's just that someone new will be joining us soon." Mummy smiled, but the smile looked forced. Daddy Pig said it would be another little brother or sister, but he looked pale and avoided Peppa's eyes. That night, Peppa woke up to a scratching noise inside the wall near her bed. She thought it was George, but he was sound asleep in his own bed. The scratching came again, closer, now from beneath the floor. In the morning, Mummy said, "Today we're bringing home a new family member. You must welcome him kindly." That evening, the door opened, but it wasn't a baby on the threshold. It was a piglet, pale, with empty eyes. He didn't oink. He just stared at Peppa. "His name is Lynn," Mummy whispered. been waiting to return for a long time. Where is he going to sleep? Peppa asked in a trembling voice. In your bed, of course. You're the big sister now. You'll let him have it, won't you?